Pop quiz. Which company is trying its hardest to keep Nintendo products out of your hands? Microsoft? Good guess, but no. Sony? Nope. Try again. Give up? It's Nintendo.
You serious?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where I spend more time looking at gaming industry statistics than a Tinder dater analyzing text messages. She said okay, but she actually wrote it out like O-K-A-Y instead of just the letters okay. Does that mean she's into me? If only there were a YouTube channel that would teach me about dating. Oh yeah. Anyway, we're overanalyzing Nintendo today, and we've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. If you've read any gaming blog or media outlet over the last 2 years, you've heard about the infamous Amiibo shortages. If you've never heard of Amiibo, you've probably never watched this channel then before. So if you took a wrong turn at Tyler Oakley and can't find your way out, let me catch you up by saying that Amiibo are the biggest gaming peripheral phenomenon of the last decade. They're toys, they're collectibles, they're DLC, they're adorable, and yeah, some are made of yarn. They sync up with all your favorite Nintendo games to add special features, and they're such a huge hit because they're functional enough for serious players, but so easy to use that kindergartners eat them up. Well, hopefully they don't. That would mean that they cause choking hazard. But in addition to all that, they've also been one of the most infuriating Nintendo products in history. Because ever since Nintendo released Amiibo in late 2014...
No way. How am I gonna win? Oh. Hello, everyone.
A lot of them have been impossible to find. We're talking speeder bike level of Battletoads impossible.
Wow.
Wave 4 went on sale in April 2015 and sold out at some retailers in less than 24 hours. The demand for them was so high that it crashed not only GameStop's online servers, but also their in-store computer system as well. So okay, Nintendo created a popular product and wasn't able to keep up with the demand. Except that they were totally able to keep up with the demand in Europe. Photos of stores in Germany during the shortage showed shelves. Oh, that is a tongue twister. Shortage showed shelves, shortage showed shelves, shortage showed shelves. Photos of stores in Germany during the shortage showed shelves full of Amiibo, even rare ones like Marth and Ike. Yeah, nailed it. In fact, a lot of the scalpers reselling on Amazon and eBay are European because Amiibo are just much more plentiful there. So what gives? I mean, it's not like Nintendo would screw over its biggest customer base by undersupplying the market on purpose, right? Well, clearly if I'm asking you that question, you know the answer is gonna be yes. Seriously, you guys know how this channel works already. Unless you're one of those aforementioned Tyler Oakley stragglers, in which case, hey, thanks for sticking around this long. Appreciate the retention time. In short, there are two major parts to this Nintendo conspiracy theory. 1. Nintendo's response to the whole Amiibo shortage has been pretty fishy. Nintendo's apologized a number of times for the shortages, and that's all well and good, but they were really slow to resupply the US, creating a rampant black market for Amiibo like Little Mac, Fox, and Captain Falcon. Amiibo are supposed to retail for $12.99, but some rare Amiibo are selling on Amazon for 4 to 5 times that much. The one that still shocks me to this day is the Wii Fit Trainer at $60. You'd think that Nintendo would want to make sure that they're the ones making the profit from the sale of Amiibo, but judging from their response to the shortages, their reaction has basically been a more polite version of meh. Some people have theorized that Nintendo is trying to artificially drive up demand now, allowing them to charge more for the figurines in the future. And then there's number 2. When you actually look at the data, Nintendo has a long history of shortages. A lot of industry insiders think these aren't so much accidental as they are strategic, buying Nintendo free publicity and increasing the value of its products by making them seem more scarce than they actually are. But is there any validity to these claims? Well, I did the research, and today we're gonna get to the bottom of this Amiibo shortage conspiracy. The truth is out there. And by out there, I mean in this episode. We're gonna get to it in a minute or two here. Starting all the way back in 1988, Nintendo was already showing shortages of its most popular products. For 2 of its sequel games, in fact, Super Mario Bros. 2 and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. It was such a big deal that the primetime news show 2020 even did a big segment dedicated to the shortages, showing how far people had to go to get the games.
This man came all the way from Indiana to get one. He came 1,000 miles just For this game?
Yes. I've done 7 stores a day for 3 weeks now. I cannot find it.
If somebody had told these people just how difficult Zelda 2 is, would have saved them a lot of hours waiting in line. Grainy video and Tom Selleck mustaches aside, the 2020 segment was a huge deal. Remember, this is 1988, a 10-minute story on primetime television? But maybe it was just a coincidence. I mean, how was Nintendo supposed to know what kind of buzz its products would have? This was still the early days of video gaming, and they didn't have the benefit of the rational, calm perspective of Reddit to guide them. But hopping forward into the future, Nintendo didn't seem to learn from the NES snafu. Remember how hard it was to find a Nintendo Wii when they first came out? The Wii was released in November of 2006, but the supply in the US didn't catch up to the demand until well into 2009, 3 whole years later. And it's not like Nintendo's strapped for cash. Nintendo has the money it needs to produce enough consoles. But publicity is a whole other ballgame. You know the saying that any publicity is good publicity? Well, as long as the press isn't at the platform hurts your neck and makes you want to vomit, it's true. For months in 2014 and 2015, the Amiibo shortage dominated the gaming conversation in the media, and it didn't cost Nintendo a dime. In fact, we can measure the impact that the Amiibo shortage had by using the best data mining you can get outside of the NSA, Google Trends. Take a look at this graph that measures the mentions of Amiibo in news results since mid-2014. Amiibo was officially announced by Nintendo at E3 on June 10th, 2014, which accounts for that little spike right here on the left side of the graph. The first wave of Amiibo were released in the USA on November 21st, 2014, which results in increased search, but just you wait. We get our first big spike in mid-December of 2014. Wanna guess what happened then? Yep, that's when blog coverage started reporting on how the first wave of Amiibo were running out and starting to get marked up by huge percentages on Amazon and eBay. And that hype train didn't get derailed for a long time. Amiibo's news relevance stayed high until October of 2015, hitting a peak at the beginning of April 2015 when Wave 4 Amiibo orders short-circuited GameStop. Now think about that for a second. Nintendo's Amiibo shortage made a splash in the news more than 5 times as big as when Amiibo were first announced. And it was a splash that lasted for 10 solid months. Also, Google Trends shows us exactly where this Amiibo buzz was the loudest, and it's almost all in the United States and Canada. If this were really a problem of Nintendo running out of Amiibo, that would be one thing, but the search data shows that almost none of it was coming from Europe or Japan. Nintendo knew where it could create a shortage, and they knew from experience that this kind of problem would create publicity for itself. They played us all, intentionally fueling the fire and making us pay higher prices on the black market. That's right, theorists. Nintendo would rather get some free press than have happy customers. But hey, that's Are you kidding? Come on. Did you really think that that was the whole story here? Look at who we're talking about. It's one of the most trusted gaming companies in the world, with one of the broadest fan bases of any company on the planet. Do people really think that they would be intentionally screwing over their primary consumers to get some extra blog posts on Kotaku? Is Nintendo really that heartless? An anti-American corporation? Loyal theorists, the answer is no. There's plenty of evidence that Nintendo isn't out to get us. And to explain that, we're gonna be talking about the thrilling world of macroeconomics. Let's start with this whole advertising issue. All those news stories you've read about Nintendo creating shortages of products, yeah, it makes for an exciting blog headline, but the numbers just don't back it up. If Nintendo were knowingly creating shortages to drive publicity, you would expect to see decreases in their advertising budgets, but it just ain't happening. In the fiscal year ending in 2015, Nintendo was one of only 2 of Japan's top 50 companies to spend more than 10% of its total revenue on advertising. How does that compare to the advertising budgets of other tech companies? It's actually pretty ordinary. Microsoft is a bit more aggressive with its advertising, spending about 18% of its annual budget there. But Nintendo actually spends more cash than Apple, which only invests 7% annually. Now, don't get me wrong, when Nintendo has a shortage of a product, they'll certainly take the press and increased hype that goes along with it. Who wouldn't? But this is only half of the story. For Nintendo, it's my theory that their marketing strategy is a whole lot more sophisticated than any of us have given them credit for. Now, all those news articles about Nintendo trying to artificially increase demand for its products through shortages are just plain wrong. It's not how economics works. That isn't even how the idea of demand works. For those of you who haven't taken an economics class, congratulations, you probably took something a lot more fun in high school. But now it's time to figure out what's actually happening here. We all all know that economics is based on the laws of supply and demand, but the thing to remember is that these two concepts are independent of each other. Demand depends on a product's price. Generally speaking, the lower the price is, the higher the quantity that people are willing to purchase. When people talk about a demand curve, this is exactly what they're talking about. I mean, think about it, it makes sense. When something is free, most people will take it. It might be the most hideous free t-shirt in the world, but damn it, I'm taking it and wearing it around the house, okay? What's in that Trader Joe's sample cup? I don't know and I don't care. It's free and it's getting shoved in my mouth hole. Nom nom nom. Likewise, the higher the price goes, the fewer people are going to buy. Oh, I'm sorry, is that a $500,000 car with a gold-trimmed engine? Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. Thanks, though. Compare that to the supply curve, which goes in the opposite direction and functions separately. When sellers can charge a higher price for a given item, they're gonna choose to make more of it to increase their profits. In the ideal system, the price of anything should be determined by where the supply and demand curves cross, which is called the point of equilibrium. For electronics and video games, we don't have any price caps in the US, so we can consider Nintendo to be acting pretty much in a free market. With that being true, shortages of Nintendo products are a result of not meeting equilibrium. And somewhere in Pawnee, Ron Swanson sheds a single manly tear. But what does that tell us about Nintendo creating shortages? Well, what the media and most online discussions about Nintendo are getting wrong is that they're not undersupplying the US with products, they're underpricing the US. But here's the real twist. They're doing it on purpose. In economics, there's a difference between demand and quantity demanded. A gander at our supply and demand curves shows the difference. If a Nintendo game comes out and it's terrible, say it's Ouija's Birthday Surprise, no one wants to play it. This is when demand falls and you can see the whole demand curve move to the left. No matter what the price is, fewer people want to buy the game because it sucks. Look at the graphics on this thing. Ouija is just creepy. His eyes are staring into my soul. This, in short, is how demand falls. Overall demand. When Nintendo makes more or less of a game, it doesn't change the demand. But when Nintendo underprices a game, it does change the quantity that's demanded of that game. See this demand curve? The lower the price, the more people are willing to buy the game. There's a higher quantity demanded of that game. And if you look, the curve didn't move. Lowering the price just increased the quantity demanded. Where there are a lot of people who want to buy a crappy rip-off Luigi game at this new lower price point. And when you do that, some interesting things happen. So Nintendo underprices Amiibo. They own the market, they're not making any mistakes about where they price things, they're intentionally making them less expensive than they can. But why? What happens is that in the short run, there's more demand than supply. These two curves aren't at equilibrium. So yes, there are shortages for a couple months in Nintendo's biggest market, and Nintendo does in fact get a ton of free advertisement. But before you go chucking your Wiimotes at them for being shameless marketing whores, take a look at almost every other tech company that you know. You'll see that all the cool kids on the block use the exact same tactic. As an example, the iPhone 6S used the exact same ploy. So did the Samsung Curved S6, its direct competitor. We don't think of these products as being the same because the iPhone looks really expensive next to the Amiibo, but remember, it's all about the supply and demand curves for each product. For gaming companies, sometimes they admit that it was a miscalculation in demand, or there was an actual supply issue like with the PS4, but early temporary shortages are often a calculated move. And free press isn't the only thing that happens. They also make the product more accessible in the long run. Look at it this way. If Nintendo releases Amiibo for the actual equilibrium price, yeah, sure, they'll sell a bunch of Marths and Wii Fit trainers for $60 for the first week or so. But what happens then? The kids who don't get so much allowance or the people who are just more casual fans still aren't going to pay that much. At that price, the quantity demanded is just a lot lower. So by underpricing them early, Nintendo actually makes them way more accessible to people later on, as long as you're willing to wait out that initial shortage. Those kids who can save up for a few weeks, or the people who can wait a couple months to catch them all, sorry, wrong franchise, they can afford Amiibo for $12.99, where they might not have gone for ones at $60. Nintendo ends up with a much more inclusive product in the long run, and most importantly, one that's very appealing to its target demographic, the younger audience and their parents. Are you following all this? Well, either way, you've made it this far, so as a reward for sitting through all this economics talk, here's a cute clip of a pig frolicking through some grass. Alright, enough cute, let's finish this up. The last thing that makes Nintendo's position complicated is that they're dealing with one of the broadest demographics in the world. I mean, think about it. Nintendo's whole brand image revolves around anyone being able to play their games. Even though an Amiibo is technically a toy, it also appeals to adults as a piece of gaming technology, and to Nintendo collector enthusiasts who don't even take them out of the box. I mean, really, what is that thing doing on your shelf? Have Beanie Babies taught you nothing, my friend? The point is, Nintendo is selling to literally everyone, regardless of age, gender, location, and income. Underpricing a little bit on the front end, make sure that they're not alienating any of these groups in the long run, without having to do any crazy price changes, all while getting a ton of free publicity for their games and peripherals. It's actually an incredibly smart strategy, and frankly, they deserve some credit for finding an elegant solution for a pretty complicated issue. A tip of the theorist cap to you, Nintendo. Not just because your marketing plan works for you, but ultimately because it makes Nintendo stuff more accessible to gamers in the long run. Is it frustrating to not be able to get Amiibo right away sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But knowing a little bit more about the reason why the shortage is happening and what it's doing for the benefit of gamers of all ages hopefully gives you a little bit better perspective on the decisions Nintendo is actually making. But hey, wait, before I go, have you ever wanted to be a part of Game Theory? Sorry, Game Theory. Well then, you should follow me on Twitter, @MattPatGT, MattPatGT. Never actually talked about my Twitter account on YouTube, so now seems like a good time. Not only do I attempt to say funny stuff that you can repeat to your friends and look really cool and take cute pictures, but I also ask you things that'll appear in future episodes of the show. In fact, the next episode incorporates data I got from Twitter followers and GT Live viewers. So it's pretty cool stuff if you've ever been interested in being a part of the show. So yeah, MattPatGT. Hopefully I'll see you there. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. And now some quick end slate stuff. If you're eager for more Nintendo theories, click the channel icon right here to subscribe. It's actually a new type of annotation. We're one of the first people to get to test it out, and it works on mobile and desktop. Give it a click, test it, it's really cool. We have a really cool episode coming out on a secret stage in Super Smash Bros. I am so excited about it. Or if you want to binge on some Nintendo theories, check out this playlist by clicking right here. And a special thanks to Roy Cordato, Stephanie's dad, who's been teaching economics for 30 years now, for his deep insights into the world of Amiibo. Talking about the differences between demand and quantity demanded, I have never seen this man get more excited about talking about anything ever, with the exception of Italian stuff. He's really excited to talk about Italian things. With a last name like Cordato, it's kind of to be expected, I guess. Anyway, Roy, thank you so much for your help in doing this. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go crunch some data on the personality types of 10,000 of you loyal theorists.